Welcome to tonight's episode of Politics HQ right here on News Central TV. I'm Kofi Bartels. So first conversation tonight, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has laid out what you might describe as an ambitious fiscal roadmap for the state's economic resurgence with the unveiling of that state's 2024 budget proposal totaling 434.221 billion naira. Well, the budget, titled Budget of Economic Recovery, prioritizes capital expenditure with 222.337 billion naira, while recurrent expenditure receives 211.88 billion naira. This represents a slight increase in capital expenditure, when you compare it to the recurrent expenditure figure, probably indicating a focus on long-term development and underscoring the administration's commitment to addressing the critical sectors. Tonight, we're honored to have the Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning of Oyo State with us to further discuss the state's fiscal plan for the year 2024. But before I introduce him, let's look at the highlights of the proposed budget for Oyo State. There's a summary. Now, we talk about recurrent expenditure. We're looking at 211.884. Let me give figures. 211,884,445,738 naira, 94 kobo. That's 48.8% of the entire budget. Let's go to the capex. Capex stands at 222,337,320,199.85. That's 85 kobo, signaling 51 or representing 51.2% of the total budget. I wonder what they do with the naira, with the kobo, normally add to the budget. Well, so the entire figure is 434,224,765,938 naira and 79 kobo. You can see the pie chart in front of you. What about the key sectoral representations or compositions? We start with agriculture. Agriculture got a total allocation of 15.8 billion naira, representing 3.65% of the total budget. We go to works. Works and infrastructure got approximately 74.3 billion naira, or 17.11% of the total budget. Let's go to the next one. Health, approximately 40.9 billion naira, or 9.44% of the total budget. Education, 90 billion naira, that's 90.6 billion naira approximately, or 20.88% of the total budget, as you can see on your screen tonight. Prof. Musbau Babatunde is the Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning of Oyo State, and he joins us tonight. Prof. Musbau, thank you so much for your time, or should I say, for your time tonight, Prof. Babatunde, rather. Let's start with that budget as it was presented before the Oyo State House of Assembly. Governor Seyi Makinde labeled it the Budget of Economic Recovery. I have a simple question for you, sir. Why?
Thank you very much. You need to realize the fact that we call it Budget of Economic Recovery because of the fact that the government, in the wake of between economic policies of removal of the gasoline subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate, that actually changed the macroeconomic fundamentals in the country. And that affected nearly all the macroeconomic variables. Inflation went up, exchange rates got depreciated, interest rate was increased simultaneously in order to be able to manage the economy. So prices went up. So Governor Seyi Makinde in his wisdom brought out a particular program, which is the Sustainable Action for Economic Recovery, which actually have like 5 pillars: the food relief package, the small and micro enterprises pillar, the health pillar, the food, the agricultural inputs, and the loan pillar, and finally the transportation pillar. So we brought this together in order to be able to give relief to the people. And so we call it SAFER, the Sustainable Action for Economic Recovery. And given the fact that we are actually not dealing with palliative issues in Oyo State, We're dealing with a program whereby we can have a sustainable economic recovery. So that is actually why it was named, the budget for the year 2024 was named by Governor Seyi as Budget of Economic Recovery. And for the total budget that you saw, you need to first of all appreciate the process that brought out that particular figure out. It's an inclusive figure that's actually transversal, that covers the whole of Oyo State. We commenced the budget process sometimes in July with the development and then putting together the medium-term expenditure framework that it to look at the fact that given the current macroeconomic fundamentals, inflation, exchange rate, interest rate, fiscal deficit, the revenue level of the state, that the current context of what we're actually facing now, if you try to put this together, what should be the figure that we should be looking at for our, total budget year 2024, year 2025, and 2026, and actually that's actually what informed the control figure that we are able to use for the budget for this year. And thereafter, after finishing the medium-term expenditure framework, we got the Executive Council approval. And over the past 5 years, the budget we have been bringing out in Oyo State has actually been an inclusive budgeting framework. We went around the 7 geopolitical zones to get the inputs of the citizens.
We'll come to that shortly, Mr. Commissioner. But you're talking about the economic situation in Nigeria, which has seen the economy really take a hit with the removal of subsidy. We're not even talking about Ukraine, Russia war, or COVID-19. How positive are you that a state can immunize itself, through the overall policies of the federal government, both positive and negative or lack thereof, to be able to set its own economic tone, pace, and atmosphere when the national economy is still down?
Thank you very much. The basic principle is actually to make sure that we stimulate effective demand in Oyo State in the context of the national economic challenges that we're actually facing. Because we realize the fact that we can stimulate effective demand, which people can actually have cash backup in terms of their demand. It gives them the opportunity to be able to get this demand done, and also the production aspect of the economy can actually be reinvigorated, whatever economic and macroeconomic challenges we're actually facing. Inflation affects everybody in the country, but if you can actually bring about sustainable economic policy measures that can reduce prices in the state. Let me just give you an example. Part of the pillar of the SAFER, that's Sustainable Action for Economic Recovery, is the hybrid input and loan support. We gave poultry farmers 8 bags, that's 50 kg bags of maize, for them to be able to support them in their feed production. And within a week of doing that, the price of maize crashed in Oyo State from 420 to maybe 360 naira thereabout, almost 120 naira difference, just within a week of putting that together. And it's a sustainable program. At the same time, we've started giving out loans, disbursing loans to the small and micro enterprises at just 8%, 7% interest rate, single digits. So they've been able to put that into that, as an input to the operation process. And so we are trying to find a way of crashing prices in the state. The same thing we did under the transportation pillar. We slashed the price of transportation. For specific part of the population. And the same thing in the health support pillar. Pensioners are not paying anything for health assets again. Out-of-pocket expenses have been grossly reduced. So our effort is actually to stimulate effective demand, bring down prices, and that can actually assist most of the downturn. So that's one way of actually taking Oyo State out of the economic challenges, as a form of economic problem for the state.
All right. Okay. Honorable Commissioner, let's talk about the key initiatives. Yes, you're calling it a budget of economic recovery. You have a program. But what are the key initiatives embedded within this budget aimed at driving economic revitalization within Oyo State? You talked about what happened in the past. Let's look at ahead into 2024 with this particular budget.
Well, thank you very much. Infrastructure. Oyo State and the context of economic blueprint that is actually being run by the states. We call it Roadmap for Sustainable Development. And this Roadmap for Sustainable Development is premised on 4 pillars. The first one is economic expansion. We discovered the fact that we need to leverage on our comparative advantage to actually become competitive in the national economy. So we need to expand our economy using infrastructure, culture and tourism, solid minerals, as well as agribusiness. Because these are like the sub-sectors that we know that can actually drive the economy of Oyo State as our own comparative advantage. And then education, which is basically a major priority of the state and of the governor as well, that we don't want a situation whereby the budget of the state, with education, we have anything less than 20%. And we have been consistent with this over the last 5 years. Then security, which is very, very fundamental, because you cannot achieve any economic development in any, unsecured environment. So we prioritize security as well. And also health. Access to health is very, very fundamental and very, very important. So these are basically the 4 pillars that is driving the economy of Oyo State. Now we've taken a very good part of them in the budget for the year 2024, which is quite fundamental. So what kind of infrastructure we've taken it at 17.11%? Because what kind of infrastructure is this particular amount? We are taking the concentration in fixing inner roads now in the state. We've been able to link the geopolitical zones together because the production sectors we've been able to reduce post-harvest losses. That has actually been able to also reduce prices.
Yes, but Commissioner, you're talking about infrastructure, for instance. Are we talking about agriculture as well?
Yes.
Okay. So,
with respect to agriculture, we're using agribusiness to be able to drive agriculture, and we are giving them support in terms of the input support that we are giving them. Also loans. Sometimes ago, we discovered the fact that the youths, we are finding a way of bringing in the youths into agriculture in Oyo State. So about 3,300 youths were sent down to Nasarawa to actually get first-hand information and learning from a private firm. And then the state is now actually supporting them now to be able to come in and stand on their own and then be able to drive the agricultural process. That's one area. We have 2 farm settlements in Oyo State. About 9 farm settlements, 2 of them are now becoming operational. One of them is now very, very operational, and in terms of the support that we are giving to them, the infrastructures have been put in place in that particular farm settlement. That's one area too that we're actually using to drive agriculture. So we are making agri to be a business in Oyo State. So this agribusiness development agency is actually the one coordinating this sector of activities.
But Commissioner, you talked about, so are we looking at just in infrastructure and agri? But even to stay with infrastructure, I was hoping to get, when you talk about the key initiatives, since we are seeing increase in capital expenditure, you tell us the specific initiatives or projects that this increase in capex will be funding that will drive economic recovery. Do you have specifics? Are there particular projects that are written down, penciled down, we want to do this? For instance, talking about roads, which roads are we looking at?
Circular road projects. The Senator Rashid Adewolu circular road projects in the state that actually spurs in from Lagos Ibadan Expressway and terminates the first part of it terminates Lagos Ibadan Express, and that's Oyo Ibadan Expressway. Then the second phase of it goes down to Monia up to the rail station, and you can actually take a spur from there to the airport as well. That is one big change that's actually going to enhance ease of connectivity in Oyo State, especially across the agricultural belt zones that we have been able to put in place together. That is one particular set of projects we're actually taking into consideration in the state. One other project we're taking into consideration is the farm settlement that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. That's one area that's also going to affect the economic recovery of the state, because agriculture is a comparative advantage in your state. We are coming up with a new business district that's close to the rail line. That's one area too that's going to drive the agricultural and economic expansion program of the state. And the gas to gas power line opportunity that we are bringing in for manufacturing agents, manufacturing firms in your state, which is an agreement signed with Shell. It's also another one that we're going to come up with. And then independent power projects are also coming on board that we're actually using to drive the economy of your state. So we have specific areas, specific capital projects in different sectors of the economy that we are trying to use to drive the economy of your state.
All right. Interesting. Now, let's look at, you've already talked about how these challenges or these initiatives will address the economic challenge. For instance, let's look at the roads. How are they going to help Oyo recover? The infrastructure you have planned for 2024. Are we just talking about roads? Do we have other things penciled down for infrastructure? Because, we look at works in infrastructure, that's 74.316 billion naira. It's a lot of money, though, if you look at some of the over-bloated budgets, contracts we have across the states in Nigeria, you might say it's not much, but if you go into the details, look at what other countries spend in Africa, it's a lot of money. So how exactly will these, initiatives of increased capital expenditure trigger economic recovery?
But that's actually what I was trying to explain to you the other time, that Oyo State's comparative advantage is on agriculture. As at the last consideration of the gross domestic product of Oyo State, agriculture is still the leading sector, and then followed by real estate, and which is basically services sector. So, we said what we need to do is to enhance the agricultural sector and make it to be a business in Oyo State. We don't want a situation whereby we just produce primary products in the state. We need to take into consideration a value addition system of our outputs in Oyo State. So a basic fundamental part is what we try to do is to, first of all, make sure that we produce and we make available the infrastructure for agriculture in the state. We all know about the challenges of post-harvest losses of most farmers in the state before we came on board as an administration. Moving from Monia, Ibadan to Seyi now, which used to be 2.5 hours, now 45 minutes. So we've been able to reduce post-harvest losses. And from that particular axis of that particular route, we're getting opportunities of real estate coming up, different estates coming up, and also manufacturing firms that engages in processing also coming up. And we are also finding a way of discussing with AFDB. The special agro-processing zone is basically on that particular axis as well. So that's another particular area of which a good infrastructure can be a driver of economic growth. The same thing we've been able to put together in Seyi and Oyo, and we are working on the Fashola, which is actually on that particular route as well. So the infrastructure we are putting in place is actually to enhance investments in agriculture, in real estate, even in health as well as education, so that we can actually come together and have a growth or an economic development that's all inclusive and that's actually rural, driven. If you take a look at the figure that we actually put together, we are actually strategic in identifying those projects because of the multiplier effects that those roads is going to bring down to the state's economy. So we don't just pick them out of anything, but we take them also that they can actually be an enhanced to enhance economic production in the state. So we believe that putting them together have actually assisted our gross domestic output to those specific areas that I've actually put forward. And it's not just, the road enhancing, so the agricultural components. It also enhances security. when the roads are good and then put it together, it also find a way of enhancing so that security agencies can actually monitor effectively. That is why farmers, your states now, they don't have any difficulty in going to farms. Unlike some other places where the security is deficient and the farmers cannot go and then cannot work freely. So because of that, we've been able to take that particular challenge and then be able to overcome it, and that has increased our gross domestic product in the state, and that's what a very good infrastructure system can actually bring about. So that's what actually we are trying to continue with respect to the 2024 budget. And it's not just our rural areas, that we are actually putting up the infrastructure. Even across the states, we are actually bringing in all the inner routes into play now, so that we can further expand the reach of its access of mobility across the peripherals of the state. And what we need to put together, and the private sector can then respond effectively to this set of opportunities that we are trying to create. So our infrastructure that we have selected are the one that can actually enhance our economy in terms of using through the channel of our comparative advantage of agriculture and as well as real estate and manufacturing.
All right. Now, despite the focus on capital expenditure, how will the government ensure that essential recurrent services, like healthcare, education, salaries, and other recurrent expenditure that are very important, adequately funded? Now, are you looking at maybe having reduction or cuts in some of these sectors where you have very important recurrent expenditure in order to be able to balance the budget?
Thank you very much. Since this administration commenced in 2019, May 29, salaries have been paid accordingly on the 25th of every month. And even to the 13th month is always paid every December. We never had the cost to actually owe salary. And we pay the minimum wage. That is to tell you the fact that Governor Seyi Makinde is fully committed to the welfare of the citizens, and make sure the fact that the recurrent expenditures are actually well implemented. And health and education. And let me give you an instance in health. The governor believed the fact that health care should be taken to the people, that everybody access should be enhanced, effective access of health should actually be enhanced. So we put together 351 wards, a primary health care center in each of the wards in your state. And as I'm talking to you, we have completed 299 of those primary health care centers. And some of them are even level 3 primary health care centers that some minor surgeries can actually be taken up. So we discovered the fact that, and we don't just put them out like that. We know the hardware and then the software, which basically the professionals and then the human aspect, the people that actually want to work in there. So this is one area that we've taken into consideration in the year 2024 budget, and that is actually the first line. The budget is divided into the recurrent and then the capital, but the recurrent is further broken down into the overhead expenditure as well as the recurrent expenditure. We don't find a way of affecting, don't allow anything to affect the recurrent expenditure. And the overhead expenditure, we always ensure that we actually take it to consideration, because this is what we drive the components of capital expenditure that we are actually trying to take a look at. Last year, the 2022 budget, we were able to achieve 75% of budget performance.
Commissioner, I wish we had more time. But the last one, Oyo State is one of the states that spent 50% or less of the IGR from the year 2022 budget on government house. But Oyo State is on top of that list. You spent 50% of your IGR on government house. How much are you going to spend this next year? How much I spend this year? How much are you going to spend next year? If someone would argue that's too much. Your IGR was said to be 62.3 billion naira in 2022. You spent half of that on government house alone.
Let me correct that impression that you are spending half of our IGR on the government house. That is not true.
2022, sir.
When you say that is not true, when you say government office, there are other agencies, departments and agencies that are under government office.
But are you saying it's not government office, Mr. Commissioner?
Yeah, so it's not just government office. Government office is all encompassing. We have the Pilgrims Welfare Board, the fire services, the Bureau of Public Procurement, the Amotekun security agencies. So many, about 13, departments and agencies are under the governor's office. So there's a difference between the office of the governor and the governor's office.
Okay, finally, when can members of the public access the copy of the budget online? I've gone to your website, or your state budget office is not there, or your state.gov.ng, it's not there. We need Nigerians or your people who want to have this document so they can scrutinize and, of course, hold government to account. So when will we see the budget online, sir?
The budget was presented to the House of Assembly yesterday, and the MDAC have to go to the House of Assembly to defend their budget.
No, I'm talking about the proposal. The proposal is going to be uploaded any moment from now. Because I'm going to give the breakdown of the budget the next 48 hours. As soon as I finish the breakdown of the budget to the public, definitely I'm going to upload it. And then all Nigerians can actually see the proposal of what we're bringing of a budget of economic recovery. All right. We hope it don't take 5 days. Thank you very much, Professor. Like the federal government.
No, you can be very sure. You can be very sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Professor Musbau Babatunde, Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning of your state. I was a guest on the first part of Politics HQ. We'll be right back. We'll talk about the House of Reps ordering the police to arrest the CBN governor and the Accountant General of Federation. I think that'll be a Nollywood grossing movie if that happens. Stay with us. We'll be right back.